Okay, things are getting very exciting in the uranium market. Now, even if you've never invested in uranium, I'm gonna break this down in the same way that it was broken down to me. So, we use about 200 million pounds of uranium in our world for electricity every single year. Well, guess what else? We only mined 120 million of it last year. That's a 60 million pound supply deficit on something that provides at least 10% of the base load power supply in the world and about 20% here in the United States for someone like myself. So you say, well, what happens if we keep having this deficit? Well, in just a couple years, you won't be able to flip your switch in your bedroom and make your lights come on. And that's why Rick Rule said recently on my show that he thinks out of everything we talk about on this channel, it's possible that uranium might be the best performing investment vehicle over the next 5 years. To top it all off, we now have Uranium Energy Corp and Denison Mines both going out into the spot market where the very, very limited amount of available uranium is left for utilities and electricity. And guess what they're doing? They went out and they bought a couple million pounds of uranium just to pull that out of the market and put a squeeze on this price. So we start to see some magic fireworks happening because the price of uranium has to at least double from here to incentivize mines to come online. And to top it all off, we're really starting to see some fireworks when we've got none other than Jim Cramer starting to tweet just a little bit about the uranium market, as you'll see right here on your screen. So in this video, we are going to be discussing the uranium market, we're going to be discussing the investment thesis, and we're going to be talking about our sponsor in today's video, which is Uranium Royalty Corp. So if you are ready to create a carbon-free world and future and electricity source, comment down below nuclear fuel rules. Down in the comments, comment down below nuclear fuel rules. Make sure you hit the like button on this side right over there and this side right over there. And let's dive right into this video on uranium, nuclear, and a word from our sponsor, which is Uranium Royalty Corp. So sometimes I still get a few head shakes when I talk about uranium and I talk about nuclear power. So let's just break it down really quick on the importance of uranium and nuclear. So the modern world and the future of humanity needs nuclear fuel and nuclear power, and right now it's really one of the only things that we're seeing in America that there's bipartisan support on. You're seeing governments all over the world either building new nuclear plants or looking at reactivating existing ones, because all over the world we're seeing, look, we need something other than just fossil fuels, and wind and solar aren't going to do it alone. Now, the benefit of uranium and nuclear power is that we have the opportunity to drastically reduce the carbon footprint and the effects that fossil fuels are having. But the craziest thing about it is that very few people truly understand the significance that uranium and nuclear actually have on our everyday life. So let me break down a couple fun facts. First of all, nuclear energy currently provides about 10% of the world's electricity from about 440 power reactors, but it's closer in America to about 20%. Now, the really exciting part to the investment thesis is that around 50 more nuclear reactors are under construction right now, which is equivalent to approximately 15% of the existing capacity. Now, next, but maybe absolutely the most important, is that nuclear is the world's second largest source of low carbon power. Now, when you really get into the supply and demand deficit, which is about as black and white as it possibly can be, from an investment perspective, it gets pretty exciting when you find out that 12 countries produced at least 25% of their electricity from nuclear power in 2019 alone, and France gets around 75% of its electricity from nuclear energy alone. In addition, Slovakia and Ukraine get more than half of their power from nuclear energy. Hungary, Belgium, Sweden, Slovenia, Bulgaria, Switzerland, Finland, and the Czech Republic get a third or more from nuclear power. In addition to that, South Korea normally gets around 30% of all the electricity from nuclear, while the USA, UK, Spain, Romania, and Russia derive about 1/5 or approximately 20% of all their electricity from nuclear energy. Now, to top all of this off purely from an investment perspective, the uranium market is heading into a huge supply deficit. Now, from the many experts that have interviewed here on this channel, I have gathered a consensus of approximately 200 million pounds of uranium are used globally every single solitary year. And in 2020, we only mined about 120 million. And so for someone who's not super into technical math and technical statistics, I was able to just go 200 million minus 120 million equals a 60 million supply deficit. So then the question is, well, why are you not invested in uranium, given that this deficit is only growing unless the supply at least is able to be met with a price of about $60 a pound for uranium? Many of the experts say that's the price to get the majority of mines to start to come back online to meet this supply deficit. Now, this investing thesis is so clear, so important to the future of humanity, that it's even attracted the likes of legendary hedge fund manager Michael Burry, the Mr. Big Short himself. You know, you maybe heard of the movie The Big Short. Well, it was all based off of Michael Burry. He was that guy that bet against the housing market, and they made a whole movie about him. Now, this is what he is saying in tweets now about the necessity of the uranium market and nuclear power. And I quote here, as you see it up on the screen, "If the government is going to spend $2 trillion, there is no better use than converting the US to nuclear. Dems can do it. Jobs plus potentially limitless electricity. No greenhouse gas emissions. Hashtag green future now." So to top it all off, Hugh Henry, former iconic hedge fund manager, had this to say about the uranium market. He said, quote, "Uranium is the rock star of commodities. It does not mess around. Its bull and bear markets are of epic proportions." Now, the most exciting part about this, we are headed into what may very well be the most epic uranium bull market in the history of bull markets. This is a bull market last time that Rick Rule's worst performing stock returned 20x. Now, we have greater electricity needs than ever before. We're in a greater supply deficit than ever before. And we're in a world where we're in an economic mania with a low interest rate environment where there is so much liquidity to go around. And we could see some truly, and I quote from Hugh Henry, epic proportions bull markets headed our way. Now let's dive right into our sponsor for today's video, which is Uranium Royalty Corp, URC, and they are the first ever royalty model in the uranium industry. Okay, so Uranium Royalty Corp, otherwise known as URC, is, as I said, the first ever royalty and streaming company in the uranium industry. They're about 20% owned by UEC, Uranium Energy Corp, which is making waves right now for purchasing a lot of uranium, and their price of the stock has really skyrocketed. I've been an owner in UEC since it was about 50 cents, and I've seen some incredible gains and some incredible moves. The CEO of that company is, of course, Amir Inani. He is the chairman of Uranium Royalty Corp. They have a lot of fantastic investors, including Rick Rule, Sprott Global. They also have the likes of a regular on our show, Mr. Doug Casey. So I asked Mr. Doug Casey to give us a little testimonial of why he wanted to be involved in Uranium Royalty Corp. And here's what Doug had to say. So the legend Doug Casey said, quote, "I'm bullish on uranium, and royalties are the safest and surest way to participate in a metals bull market. That's why URC, Uranium Royalty Corp, is among my largest uranium holdings." So Doug Casey has also been quoted, probably one of his most famous quotes ever about uranium is, he said, "When the market goes in gold stocks, it's like trying to force the contents of Hoover Dam through a garden hose. In the case of uranium stocks, it's more like a soda straw. It's a very small market." So let's break down some more fast facts for Uranium Royalty Corp. So number one, Uranium Royalty Corp in the US on the OTC is URCCF, which only has a market cap of $161 million. Number two, Uranium Royalty Corp is actually the first and only company to apply the successful royalty and streaming business model exclusively to the uranium sector. So it's important to understand what makes the royalty and streaming business model so incredible. So basically, here's how this business model works in general. Metal royalty and streaming companies provide funds for mines in exchange for future payoffs. The royalty entitles the holder to a fixed percentage of the revenues less certain expenses, called royalties, generated by these mines, and a stream entitled the holder to a portion of physical metals produced by the mines. So if you are unfamiliar with the royalty and streaming model, it's absolutely huge in the precious metals industry because it's a very, very, very low risk business, because there is fixed cost and there's huge ROI if the metal that you're investing in is in the middle of a bull market and it's seeing huge price appreciations. The most notable companies in the gold and silver mining and royalty streaming industries are Franco-Nevada and Wheaton Precious Metals. As you see up on the screen here, Franco-Nevada recently announced a record year in the company. They increased their dividends, and they only have about 12 or 16 employees, because the craziest thing about this type of a model is that as you keep building your portfolio in this niche, what happens is you end up having an incredible amount of capital in terms of Franco-Nevada, billions of dollars flowing in with almost no employees because you aren't responsible for the mines. You just essentially are getting a kickback or a percentage of what is being mined out of it. So Uranium Royalty Corp has about 38 million in cash and listed securities. So they have a great looking balance sheet. They are publicly traded on the TSX under URC or on the OTC as URCCF. And they really are right now the only pure play uranium royalty company in the entire world. So in addition, URC has a strategic investment in Yellowcake, which is a company that has a long-term supply agreement with Kazatomprom, the world's largest uranium producer. So this supply agreement enables Yellowcake to purchase up to $1 billion in uranium directly from Kazatomprom over a 10-year period. So here's the kicker. So Uranium Royalty Corp currently has approximately a 9.6% stake in Yellowcake. So this is direct exposure to the rising uranium price, and it's just a nice addition to the company's royalty and streaming revenues. Okay, so now we'll dive more deeply into the URC news that they made recently with headlines where they got involved in royalties on some of the biggest uranium mines in the entire world. So part of this portfolio is the world-class Cigar Lake mine, whose joint venture partners are primarily composed of Cameco at about 50% and Orano Canada Inc. at about 37%. So Cigar Lake is licensed to produce 18 million pounds of uranium per year. The historical production of 93 million pounds of uranium has been recorded since Cigar Lake first went into production in 2014. So the consensus is this is one of the best uranium projects in the world today based on numerous valuation metrics that are out there. In addition to that, the McArthur River asset is also a key component of what Uranium Royalty Corp has going on. So now let's dive a little bit more into the headline news that they made on the acquisitions that they were able to strike. So the deal is structured in summary of a purchase price of $11.5 million US payable through 10 million cash and 1.5 million in common shares of URC, representing approximately 1% dilution. McArthur River project was a 1% gross overriding royalty on an approximate 9% share of uranium production derived from Orano's ownership interest of 30% in the McArthur River project. So included in the royalty is the option to take physical uranium in kind by giving a 45-day notice. So on top of that, then we have the Cigar Lake, which is 20% net profits interest on 3.75% share of overall uranium production that is derived of that same Orano's ownership interest of 37.1%. So the royalty rate adjusts to 10% in the future upon production of 200 million pounds from the royalty lands, which is approximately 93 million pounds having been produced to date. So in conclusion here, we'll just take a little chart from the URC company presentation of some of the investment highlights that they have here. So as you see, first mover advantage, URC is the first company to apply the successful royalty and streaming business model exclusively to the uranium sector. Number two, they have 38 million in cash and listed securities, so strong balance sheet. Then we have physical uranium ownership. So through its approximately 9.6% stake in Yellow Cake, URC holds interest in physical uranium. And then we have large and diversified royalty portfolio. So the portfolio includes interest on development, advanced, permitted, and past producing uranium projects. And last but not least, we have expertise. So a management and board possesses decades of uranium industry expertise. So next, we have the real interesting chart that provides a unique advantage to the royalty company. So of course you have here with Uranium Royalty Corp exposure to uranium price, which of course all the companies are really going to provide exposure to that. But one of the more interesting segments which has made royalty and streaming companies so attractive to the precious metals industry is the second one here, which is fixed operating costs. Now, whenever you have a royalty company, you truly get that opportunity. So as you see here, Uranium Royalty Corp has a check mark. Now, the no development or sustaining capital costs, again, these are the benefits that make institutions jump into Franco-Nevada and make institutions jump into Wheaton Precious Metals. Now, one of the other interesting parts of the deals that Uranium Royalty Corp made, which is exploration and expansion without the associated costs. So part of the deals that they made with MacArthur and Cigar is that they have the opportunity to partake in the exploration upside without having to have the associated costs. So this is why the uranium royalty model is so attractive. So I hope that by the end of this video, you are as excited about the uranium bull market as I find myself to be right now. When I look at all the data, when I look at the supply and demand fundamentals, when I look at the necessity for us to produce low carbon energy that can truly start to power the world, it leads us pretty much to one thing, and that's uranium. That's nuclear power. And it's the necessity for us to have higher uranium prices to bring more mines and more supply online. Now, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to comment down below. Nuclear fuel rules, right there down below. That's nuclear fuel rules. And make sure you hit the like button over on this side right over there, or this side right over there on that side. Special shout out to the sponsor of today's uranium video, which is Uranium Royalty Corp. So we'll put their website right there down below in the description. And if you haven't yet, make sure you hit the subscribe button, the bell notification, all that fun stuff to get notified for future videos. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the other side of the uranium bull market.